Hey everyone's Classy DM. Today we're going to talk about In Search of the Unknown. There is magic in this module that you have to go back and revisit every now and then from time to time. Let's talk a little bit about some of the history first, and then we'll dig into the actual module. Now we're not going to play it, and we're not going to run through the whole thing, but we're going to point out things about this module that no other module ever did, and why it makes such a great kind of refresher course for what D&D is all about. It's something that I think that every DM needs to go through every year and just read the darn thing, because what the guys put together way back in 1979 was really, really good. Let's just jump in here real quick. So, in the very beginning, everyone got a copy of this Dungeons and Dragons basic set. I know I did in 8th grade. A friend of mine, Josh Clemens was his name. He had it. He didn't like it. We were playing Squad Leader and a bunch of other stuff, and he gave me his copy of it. And I just bought it from him for like $5. And this isn't my copy. This is a picture from eBay. That's why it has this skank ass carpet, which is not my house. I don't have a skank carpet in my house. But that's the box. It was a box set. And inside the box set, there was In Search of the Unknown module B1. And B2 is coming at a later date, but you see there's two covers here. And we all know that TSR did this a lot. With the first logo, with the little wizard in his hand with P.O. Box 756 Lake Geneva. And then it became TSR, the Game Wizards. And once they became popular, they kind of redid a lot of the covers of the stuff they first released. So the first one with this dis and dat, image on it. And then the second one has this Errol Otis. No, it's a Darlene picture. It actually looks like colored pencil. I have a copy of the one on the right. I don't have my original copy from B1, but the differences are negligible. The box set that came out after that, once they rebranded themselves, had The Keep on the Borderlands, which in my opinion is one of the worst dungeons ever created. It's just a bunch of random hack and slash with different demi-humans. You may like that as a follow-up to The Village of Hamlet, but I couldn't stand it. Once again, this is not my carpet. Now, The Keep on the Borderlands, we're not talking about that today. We're going to talk about B1 because Keep on the Borderlands is coming out in like 1980. Like, game's already been out for a couple of years now. People already got all the books, Fiend Folios coming out, etc. What we're going to talk about is this thing here. Right? This is an introductory module that teaches you how to be a dungeon master. It teaches you about how the different conventions of one-way secret doors and traps and laying treasure and balancing the dungeon and all those kinds of things work. So we're going to take our copy of the module here and we're going to take a look at some of the details of it that I think are very important for you to remember. Let me just pull this over a little bit here. Let me turn that music down a touch. So what's really different? Okay, so what's really different going on here is this is specifically written by Mike Carr to be an introductory dungeon for a dungeon master and for his players to encounter pretty much one of every kind of thing, such as there's several one-way secret doors. There's illusions that have magic mouths. There's a wind quarter that will extinguish torches and open flames. Isn't it kind of funny that we see that other RPG that's been created that's all based on darkness now, using a mechanic that actually is already in place in Dungeons and Dragons? It's kind of going back to what made some of these things scary a long time ago. There's a room with mysterious pools. This is one of the most classic rooms, one of the classic images ever done in all of AD&D history. There's a water pit trap that suddenly drops adventurers to a lower level, teleporter rooms that will confuse people, magical treasures, some are beneficial, some are cursed. Cursed items were always a huge pain in the ass to work with when you're playing, when you're like, 13, 14, 12 years old. Mysterious containers with various contents that you can examine. So all kinds of like the basic things you needed to have. It's also designed to not be deadly, but it doesn't have any treasure and it doesn't have any monsters in it. It just has a layout and a room and the situation at hand. And you as a dungeon master need to spend time preparing what all those elements need to be. But this introduction, 4 or 5 pages, talks about time, talks about computing experience, how to be an effective dungeon master. Page 5. This needs to be posted on every 5th edition website ever, because I'm sorry, Critical Role is not how to be an effective dungeon master, right? It's crucial to keep in mind that the game is based on player interaction and player choice. The game generally follows the course of the player's actions, if not always their plans. You're a moderator. A moderator, you present an ever-changing situation as it occurs, sort of like an unfolding story, or even a movie if you think of it in those terms. And the players respond pretty much as they desire. This is something that's gone off the walls. Everyone thinks it's all this linear, dramatic Hollywood voice acting stuff. Now, you old school guys, and maybe girls, realize that's not how it's really played. The game's changed with the internet and media and streaming and all this kind of garbage. So What would you do though once you get past this? How do you set things up? Well, it does have a series of legends to introduce the players into like what's going on with the adventure. Another thing that's really great about this module, which you may not realize, is they included a player sheet in the very back on page 31, which is the right-hand pane here. This gives you all the background of this Rogaine and the Fearless and Zelagar the Unknown, which is not Joe Rogan, okay? These are legendary names, and there's a really interesting story behind that. And behind this page, if you print this on Xerox, 31, the one on the right here, and 32, it lists potential characters the players could play, and it has pre-generated characters, and then it even has tips for beginning players. Right, let me just read a couple of these beginning tips for you. Let me make this bigger so you can see it, because if you're looking at this on your phone or something, you're chilling out, we'll go to single page view, and then we'll enable scrolling. And let's do it this way. We'll enable scrolling, and then I can zoom in really closely, and we can drag around here, and you can see things much easier. So as I mentioned a moment ago, these are clerics, fighters, dwarves, and halflings. Remember in basic edition, it wasn't like fighters and paladins and rangers. That hadn't been introduced yet. Magic users and elves and thieves. They have these different characters for you that you could possibly pick from. Here you go. Tips for players. Beginning players would do well to profit from some basic advice before beginning their D&D careers. And with that in mind, the following points are offered for consideration. Be an organized player. Keep accurate records on your character, experience, abilities, items possessed, for your own purposes and to aid the dungeon master. Now in the mono world, I have copies of all the character sheets and I keep track of everything because I want them to be thinking about what they're doing in the moment. But back in those days, keeping track of your hit points and stuff was really important. Remember, a lot of people playing D&D when this first came out were little kids like I was, like 12, 13 years old in middle school and stuff. There were college kids that played too, but they didn't need to be told this. But D&D kind of appealed to a younger generation that was reading the Savage Sword of Conan the Barbarian or watching Thundar the Barbarian cartoons and stuff like that. So number 2, always keep in mind that the Dungeon Master is the moderator of the game and as such deserves the continued cooperation, consideration, and respect of all the players. That sounds like something you hear in a political speech. If you disagree with him or her, present your viewpoint with deference to the DM's position as game judge, but be prepared to accept his or her decision as final. After all, keep in mind that you may not know all the aspects of the overall game situation, and in that case, not everything will always go your way. That sounds like rules for life, doesn't it? And then we're going to go up here to the upper right-hand column. Cooperate with your fellow players and work together when adventuring. Remember that on any foray into dungeon or wilderness, a mix of character classes will be beneficial, since the special abilities of the various characters will complement each other and add to the overall effectiveness of the party. Number 4, be neither too hasty nor too sluggish when adventuring. If you're too fast in your exploration, you may recklessly endanger yourself and your fellow adventurers and fall prone to every trick and trap you encounter. If you're too slow, you will waste valuable time and may be waylaid by more than your share of wandering monsters without accomplishing anything. As you gain playing experience, you will learn the proper pace, but rely on your DM for guidance. Number 5, avoid arguing. While disagreements about this, pull this up a little closer for you. I'm going to move this over here so you can see it really. Avoid arguing. We're about right here, okay? While disagreements about the course of action will certainly arise from time to time, players should quickly discuss their options and reach a consensus in order to proceed. Bickering in the dungeon will only create noise, which may well attract wandering monsters. Above all, remember that this is just a game, and a little consideration will go far towards avoiding any hard feelings. Have you ever played a D&D session where like got an argument with one of your friends and then you hate each other for like 3 days? Be on your guard. Don't be overly cautious, but be advised that some non-player characters may try to hoodwink you. Players may double-cross you, and while adventuring, tricks and traps await the unwary. Of course, you won't avoid every such pitfall. Dealing with uncertainties is part of the fun and the challenge of the game, but don't be surprised if everything is not always as it seems. And number 7, treat any retainers or NPCs fairly. If you reward them generously and do not expose them to great risk of life or limb that your own character will not face, then you can expect a continuing loyalty, although there may be exceptions, of course. I want to make a quick comment on that. You know, when we played, we never used men-at-arms. We never used NPCs, unless it was part of the adventure. Like if the adventure really had a narrative character, but there's a lot of information in the DM's guide and a lot of expectation that the party will bring, you know, a bunch of men-at-arms with them with pikes and longswords and maybe some chainmail. We never did that. I think that kind of carries over from the wargaming from chainmail. So what ended up happening is our characters end up becoming a little bit more powerful, and our DM will reward us a little bit better gear and a little bit of stuff and loot because we didn't have 3 extra jokers with pikes, helping DPS down something, right? Number 8, know your limits. Your party may not be a match for every monster you encounter, and occasionally it pays to know when and how to run away from danger. Not from danger, but from danger. It's a typo. Likewise, a dungeon venture may have to be cut short if your party suffers great adversity and or depleted strength. Many times it will take more than one adventure to accomplish certain goals, and it will thus be necessary to come back out of a dungeon to heal wounds, restore magical abilities and spells, and reinforce a party's strength. We should do this all the time, and if you ever played Wizardry 1 from Surtech, you had to do this. You had to go back to town. You had to go back and rejuvenate your health because there wasn't a lot of healing going on. And we all know that in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons in 1st and 2nd edition, healing is coming from, spells from clerics. People aren't running around with healing potions like in Diablo 2, okay? So you had to leave and go heal up and then come back, and sometimes things in the dungeon would change. It wasn't like a save game you're coming back to in a video game where everything you dispatch hasn't respawned and stuff like that. So use your head. Me and the character's goals in the game can be accomplished through the strength of arms or magic. Others, however, demand common sense and shrewd judgment, as well as logical deduction. The most successful players are those who can effectively use both aspects of the game to advantage. The fun of a D&D game comes in playing your character's role. Take on your character's persona and immerse yourself in the game setting, enjoying the fantasy element and the interaction with your fellow players and Dungeon Master. Now, in the modern day, I think that's been taken a little too far, but I don't want to pontificate too much about my personal opinions. What I do want to do is go a couple pages earlier. So let's change this view back to this 2-page view. Excuse me there. Let's go back to 2-page view. That's in the very back, and that's all information for the player. When you get further forward, the module ends here. By page 25, you have these monster charts, right? From like 1 to 25. Orcs, troglodytes, kobolds, ghouls, centipedes, carrion crawler, or blah, blah, blah. And really short little brief entries. This is how you populate the dungeon. And then there's a treasure list. So you could say in one of the rooms, I'm going to have a 16, right? Which, 1 to 8 goblins, AC 6, hit dice 1 minus 1. The hit points are like 7, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 1. Really weak. They have a 1d6 power by weapon type. And you may say the treasure is going to be C, which is 28 gold pieces, and maybe even G, 8 to 10, gold piece gems or something along those lines. So that element's tricky because when you're a starting out dungeon master, you don't have a sense of what's the right balance between what's too much treasure and what's too difficult. The first time I played this, I got killed in the first hallway. It was myself and 2 friends, and they got killed too. I had a magic user, which are really weak, only had 3 hit points, and I had a fighter. And my plan was the fighter was going to be in the front, the magic user was going to use sleep and web and crap like that and assist us. And then we had another person playing a thief, another person playing a bard, because it's AD&D, right? So not the modern day bard. And in the first hall, we got attacked by a bunch of kobolds, and there was like 12 of them. And it was a lot to deal with, and we got chipped away and killed. Magic user got killed in the second melee round, and we just weren't ready for it. And the DM, 12 kobolds is pretty heavy duty. It was a lot. We got swarmed really quickly. But you'll notice on this module, if you go through it, and you probably know this already, I'm just going to point it out for people who've never seen this before. Let's go back to this zoom view so you can see in here. And let's go to enable scrolling one more time. So we're going to zoom in here a little bit. You have the room entries are like this. They say monster, treasure, monster, treasure. So the strength of the dungeon is not in the actual combat. It's in what's going on with the room itself. For example, this lounge room. This anteroom is through a south door from the dining room and apparently was designed for before dinner and after dinner activity. Drinking was apparently the most popular pastime here, for several earthenware tankard mugs hang from a row of hooks, high on one, all but many more missing, it appears. An ale keg, long since dry but still smelling slightly of the brew, stands in one corner. The stone walls are strangely textured for an unusual effect, but are devoid of further markings or details. A long wooden bench seat, actually attached to the wall, is along each side of the room. Those seated on the bench all face towards the center of the room and the statue there. At the center of the room is a carved statue, full size, of a nude human female, beckoning with arms out front, a very alluring pose. This statue, apparently of white marble, is obviously of great value. Now it says 5,000 GP, but that's for the DM. However, due to its tremendous weight and the fact that it seems anchored to the floor, it will be impossible to remove without a major engineering effort. Even characters strength at 18 will be unable to move it in any way, right? When you're a 12-year-old kid, a naked alluring female is kind of like crazy, dude. But that's what you have. That's a really good, it's not blocked out like in Hidden Shrine of Timoshan or any of the adventures that we saw. Like we talked about the Slave Lord series on Wednesday of this past week, and how they have, in the modern version, has everything blocked out, read to the players. These things are pretty much written to be completely read to the player, and stuff in parentheses is what you don't read to the player. So this is a really, really great module. Definitely worth going back and getting a copy of it and try running it, because it's huge. Let's go take a look at some of the maps, right? And I mentioned earlier where we got killed in the first area. This is the first area here. This room here, 31, is probably one of the most memorable classic rooms of any Dungeons and Dragons adventure I think ever created. It is the room that has all these different types of pools. It's on here on page 13. You get this piece of artwork that shows, let's see if I can find the picture. Where is it? One moment. I think I've skipped it already. Did I skip it? Where is that page? There's 18. Sorry, I'm slowing down here because I missed the page number. Where is that classic picture? Maybe it's later on the module. Maybe I missed it. That's the Ben Bar's Lift Gate picture. Bear with me, fellows. I gotta find that picture. It's such a classic. Absolutely love it. I'm looking at the thumbnails on the side here. That's the treasure picture. This is one of the laboratory rooms. Here it is. It's later on. It's not next to the actual room itself. This picture here. Here you go. Thanks for your patience. All these different little magical pools, and put your hand in it and trying to figure out what's going on with it. Like everyone pretty much gets to that area in the dungeon. And it's over here to the right-hand side. This is such a classic room, room 31. It's a really great dungeon. All the walls are relatively like about a foot thick, and it has almost everything you could possibly need. These compounds don't make a lot of sense. It's not like the Steading the Hill Giant Chief. I mean, who would want to live here? It's not really a castle. It's an underground dungeon. And then when you get down to the lower level, you get to this really crazy bunch of caves and stuff like that. But the reason why I want to evangelize this module is the introduction, reading what the preparation of the module should be like, how to be a good dungeon master, what exploration is like, how to handle time, how to compute experience for everyone, right? This is all for the basic rule set. The legends that are provided, I mean, a table to roll D20 legends on, and designs about the dungeon itself, the caverns that are below it, the wandering monsters and how to handle it, how to handle encounter areas. I mean, some of the magic mouth stuff. It's really complete. The only thing it's missing is the treasure and the monsters. If I was going to play Dungeons and Dragons with a young person, this is probably pretty involved for them. But I would print this out and give this, assuming they can read, that they're not like 5, right? I would print this out and give them this, and then I would give them a chance to pick a party of characters by telling them what all the different classes do. And I'd probably use AD&D classes because I don't play basic set, but all these different pre-generated characters to choose from. They have magic items and everything you could possibly need. All their stats are there, their armor class are there. I would let the young person pick like 2 or 3 of the characters, and then complement them with a few additional characters and run them as NPCs for them, and have them go through the adventure and keep all the combat really, really light, and keep the treasure like magnanimously awesome, right? So they have this really fun adventure exploring some of the tricks and traps of the different parts of the dungeon. I remember one time playing with a friend of mine who had never played before, but they played all kinds of adventure games and played every MMO you could possibly think of, but they had no idea about searching a room for anything. Like I couldn't get them to do it. I had to have NPCs with them that would start searching for the walls. And what's he searching for? It's just a wall. There might be secret doors. And then once they learned that concept, then they realized they could do that almost everywhere. And then soon you learn in all the TSR dungeons that every damn dungeon has secret doors all over the place, right? So anyway, just want to summarize real quickly here. This is a classic module, a really good one to get your hands on if you haven't. It's such a great go back and remember how it started kind of adventure. We may all have our favorites, like the Village of Hamlet or the City-State Invincible Overlord from Judges Guild. But this classic, basic, simple dungeon's ready to go. It's fantastic. There's nothing about it at all that sucks. It's really well done. It's got more content for introducing someone to play than any other dungeon. Definitely grab a copy of it. And like I said in the other video of the day, hey, share your experiences too. And maybe you made it further than we did. You guys have a great day and have a cool Thanksgiving. We'll make some more videos before Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you again real soon. See ya.